Hello and welcome to the BG Podcast, episode 257. My name is A.J. Bingham, the founder and CEO of Bingham Group, and joining us, as always, is Associate Hannah Garcia.
Hello, everybody.
For those who aren't familiar with the show, what we do on these Monday episodes is review the prior week in Austin politics. So this will be for the week of June 17th, as well as what's going on for the coming week that we know so far on this lovely Monday. So starting off last week, big news was the release of the candidates to be Austin's potentially to be Austin's next police chief. 32 candidates from across the country. Hannah, just we had a chance to review these a little bit last week, but any initial observations, high level?
It's a mixed bag of candidates. Their experience varies from just being a police officer, just a normal police officer, to being all the way up to assistant chiefs of police.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's unfortunately some that could or that do have a alleged scandal against
Or
them.
at least I think that it's fair to say, and then again, we reviewed this. The states, Austin American statesmen had released the candidates through a PI, a public information request,
Hmm.
and they also were helpful to include other articles about certain candidates that were publicly available. So
Yeah,
you're right.
yeah. And I think there's some that I think are great. There's several candidates with decades of experience, including at the executive level in the force.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some that I question what their thought process was when applying to this position.
Yeah, we're not gonna name any names, but yes, again, this is all publicly available. I
Yeah,
think we say that in the context of okay, you know, as we gave this out last week, Hannah, we talked about okay, if we were on the council dais, and even though council doesn't hire the police chief, the city manager hires the police chief, Mr. Broadnax, but TC Broadnax, but the council is involved in this process.
hmm,
So if I was council going to election year, even if it wasn't an election year, and we have a new city manager, you're right. From their point of view, I don't see any baggage at all that hasn't been totally cleared off. I don't see that's one extra thing they're gonna have to explain to the public on. As we saw with prior folks who were police chiefs in Austin who came back, tried to come back, they don't want that headache. I don't think they
yeah,
want the headache. And again, I'm not
yeah,
involved in this process at all, but we watch council a lot, and I think just the politics of the politics and the politics of all of this. And yes, they don't want a necessary headache. No one wants that. They don't have to have one.
yeah. And looking at our history with the police and police chief, I think it is extremely important that we get someone who kind of has a clean slate, is probably not from the region and has never worked for APD, which I know may seem counterintuitive, but the city's consistently hired from within for the past, and it hasn't really worked out. So I definitely think there's this desire to, want a fresh perspective in that seat. And additionally, we know that interim chief Robin Henderson is not throwing her hat into the
Mm-hmm.
ring for this job. And so there's a few candidates that are from within the police department or have previously worked in APD.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, I think that a lot of these candidates that are from the other side of the country have a better chance than those from within.
Yeah, and, I think it was notable as well that there was no one from the
Mhm.
current APD command level that had applied for the job as well. And so, correct, interim chief Robin Henderson will be with this will be with the department until a new permanent chief is selected, and she'll then, as been reported, retire at that time. But coming back to this list, right? So there were, across the country, we had several folks who had who were chiefs, right? But to your point earlier, the largest city I saw in here might have been Milwaukee, and that was the 32nd largest city or so, and Tucson as well, and it was in the 30s as well. So there weren't a lot of folks who had executive level experience of a major department. We had folks on here who came from major cities like Philadelphia and New York, notably Philadelphia and New York, in and of themselves major departments, and in those departments, I think were over a significant segment of officers, but still it wasn't the top spot, right? And
Mhm.
so again, the posting went open on the May 15th and it closed on June 10th. Also, and tying to this, also out today in the Austin Monitor, they had an interview with city manager Broadnax regarding the police chief hire. So we'll link to that in the show notes. But he in asking about the candidates and their backgrounds and everything we had been talking about, just to quoting him here, it says, seeing the names, I think there are a lot of cities that I'm not particularly familiar with, particularly as it relates to the footprint of their police department and levels of responsibility directly short of just going off population. So there's a lot, I think based off that, not that a candidate from a smaller city isn't off the list. It's just there's going to be, I believe, I'm sure there will be behind the scenes as part of the formal process, evaluations about folks' actual capabilities and the nuances of those particular communities and those departments as
Yeah,
well.
exactly. And I think a great thing that Mr. Broadnax has under his belt is he's hired the Dallas police chief that
Mm-hmm.
is currently there. And the Dallas police chief is extremely well liked. He got a great signing bonus to stay there and not come down to Austin. And so I think that we're him being in the driver's seat is a great thing for us. And he's talked about in interviews with the Austin Monitor how council and interim city manager Jesus Garza kind of pressed pause on hiring the police chief so a permanent city manager could do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes sense. You want to know who your boss is before you come in. So I think that he'll pick the best person for us, and I think it's just a matter of who wants this job because it
Mm-hmm.
is so difficult, and you're subject to a lot of politics that you might not want to be as a police officer who's trying to uphold the law.
Mm-hmm.
But we
Yeah,
shall see.
yeah. I'm trying to find the quote in here where he kind of alludes to that as well in terms of, um, here we go. Like if you're a top 10 city, then I think that speaks for itself. But every city is there. It's really about how you lead and what your presence is and what your level of experience is in managing people and all the challenges that come with law enforcement. I'm excited to get in a room and have conversations with the recruiter, Mosaic, about who they believe the top candidates, and then go from there. As well, I forgot to mention, and this came up in his interview, he had hired two police chiefs in Dallas when he was city manager. So the first was right when he in his work when he had came from Tacoma to Dallas in 2017, their last police chief had retired in October of 2016. So he was involved hiring now retired Dallas Police Chief Reese Hall, black woman, in September of 2017, and then also the hire now current police chief Eddie Garcia. The thing with in last week once the candidates were announced for Austin's, I was looking back at just at least the hiring of Dallas Chief Garcia and how that went. So Chief Garcia was the police chief of San Jose, which
Mhm.
which was on par with Dallas population, at least now, probably then as well, right? So we had you had a kind of a lateral move over, similar to what with Mr. Rodnax coming to Austin, right? In that sense. Well, that's the best. It's like there's only I think he says in his interview there's only so many big city chiefs out there, and getting a lateral and getting a city, so getting a chief that's one of the top 10 cities above Austin. We know Dallas is not so it's gonna be Dallas. Houston's have a police chief right now, so
Yeah.
there's not a lot to pick. There's not a lot there. So I think we'll see how this plays out. The timeline from the interview that Mr. Rodnax has laid out, and I know this is subject to change. Um, but he states that towards the end of June, so this week, he'll be sitting down with Mosaic, the search firm, to start doing early vetting and having early conversations with some select folks in that list. He says hopefully no more than 5 to 10 candidates for that conversation, and then from there, sometime in the middle of or during July, spend more time one-on-one, bringing them into Austin for shortlist conversations, and then also soliciting community feedback for strengths and weaknesses, and trying to find or having council finding time for council to try to ratify a contract sometime in late July or early August, thinking before their budget. And then from there to a 30 to 45 day window for them to be on the ground. So let's say all this moves. There's a candidate on this list we're looking at sometime September, early October for the new police chief to be in here. So it's all possible, right? I think we see what we see from the list, and there's one aspect of it. the nitty gritty is going to come from these conversations. Under for these members to, or for those candidates to see how they align with our council, our city's values, our council's direction, as well as city manager's direction, and we go from there. I mean, ideally, we want the best candidate we can get. There are a lot of this is a very obviously a very important department for the city.
Yeah.
So it needs to be handled well. We need someone who we believe can hold the job. I mean, ideally for 7 years would be great.
Yeah.
At least at the end of the decade.
Yeah, maybe longer, depending
Maybe
on how
longer.
it is.
Nope. Yeah, maybe longer. So more to come there, but that was the big news last week, and going into this week, council is still on their summer recess, coming back on Friday, July 17th for a special called meeting to review the proposed budget from the first city budget from city manager TC Broadnex. We'll be watching that, providing analysis soon thereafter once it's released. And then council will be back July 12th. They'll be back on Friday, July 12th. And their meeting, the first regular meeting will be July 18th. There we go.
Yes.
And it was gonna be that look. Thank you.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think that's right, but
just
we'll
roll with it.
correct.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I appreciate the correction.
At least you're wrong with confidence. I feel like that's what they always say. Be confident.
Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but we'll go with it. Yes. But y'all, that's what we have for this week. And as always, be watching the news and follow the BG Reads for more timely updates on what's going on in Austin politics. We'll have more for you next Monday. Y'all have a great week. It shouldn't crack double digits here in Austin. That's something. And yes, otherwise, though, it's still hot. So stay hydrated, stay in the shade, and have a great week.
Yeah, have a great week, everybody.